You're muted.
Yeah, I caught it. I caught it. Just
Yep.
not soon enough.
Everyone's gonna fill out their bingo card.
Yeah. Rebecca Wallace, I am the EDDMapS coordinator, and today I'm going to be talking about getting yourself set up in EDDMapS Pro. This is kind of a way to provide you your mental checklist on how to make sure that you're ready to go out into the field each day. Make sure you have yourself set up so that you have everything you need before you go out and do things. So I'm going to share, hold on, let me pull up the thing I wanted to pull up. Where'd it go? Oh, wrong one. When you have too many things going on. There it is. Okay. You can see my screen, I take it?
Yes, we can.
There we go. All right, so just a brief kind of what is EDDMapS. It is a platform for reporting and accessing invasive pest and biological control data. It's a primarily a system you access through either your the website eddmaps.org or through in various ways one or more of our apps to be able to report or learn about these different types of species. And you can report through our website through forms that exist on some partner pages, as well as through our apps. And the app I'll be primarily talking about today is EDDMapS Pro, but we do have some other apps. And so I wanted to mention those before I got into too far. So this is just a kind of a table that I show people occasionally about, okay, well, which app should I be using to document these invasive species? And so we do have, primarily speaking, for nationwide type reporting, 3 apps. We have our WildSpotter app, we have our EDDMapS app, and we have our EDDMapS Pro app. And there are some areas they overlap, and there are some areas they're very different. So with EDDMapS Pro, our primary audience is for professionals, so land managers, property managers, people who have an area of responsibility that they are coming back to time and time again to monitor and or manage for invasive or pest species. Now, because this app has the primary audience as some sort of professional who's going back into an area again and again, the app does not have a field guide. Our other apps, WildSpotter and EDDMapS, do have field guides. The EDDMapS Pro app does not contain a field guide within it. The reportable species that exist are based off of a list you create or that exists within the projects you are part of. So it basically can be just about any invasive or pest species. It's a list you essentially decide. Now, both our EDDMapS and our EDDMapS Pro apps, you can report negative records. So I went out and looked for something and did not find it. So if that area you are responsible for, you are surveying regularly for something like emerald ash borer or giant hogweed, things like that, you can go out and do your yearly survey for those species and say, okay, I did not find these things in this area. You can record a point or a polygon. Some people think that, it does default to a point, but you can draw polygons in the app. Coordinate privacy, that means that you are recording data and you do not want the public at large to know where this occurrence is down to the coordinate level. You can say, I want the coordinates to be private. That exists on the reporting form. And that is an option in EDDMapS Pro as well as the EDDMapS app. Our location basis is just at a coordinate or county level. So you'll see me talk a fair amount about the county list And so that is an important concept in EDDMapS Pro. Revisits, you can conduct revisits and contribute revisit data through the EDDMapS Pro app, which is not currently an in-app function for the other apps that are our primary nationwide apps. And you can download existing records into the app. The whole point of the app is for professionals, usually in remote or areas with low connectivity. And so to do a revisit, to conduct a revisit, you need to know where that record is. And so that's why downloading the data into the app is an important component of it. So this allows for offline use. Background maps. So these are background aerial and or road maps. Those are downloadable and it's based on a county at this time. And then record review. So you can, when you're reporting these data, it's going to be reviewed by EDDMapS verifiers, usually at a species and or geographic level. So a lot of your verifiers are going to be local, either specifically to that county or to the state. All the data that you're contributing will be available through the EDDMapS website. So it kind of all comes back to the website in the end for having that data be publicly available or available to you for download and manipulation and other software. And then projects is a component we launched in March, and we've talked about it at our previous office hours. You can look at our previous office hours videos on the training page of the EDDMapS website. You have to be a member of the project to report data into it. And so that's one of the things I'll briefly show you later today. So going back to the website, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about will be in setting yourself up will happen through the My EDDMapS section. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that section. There's two kind of parts to setting yourself up. You will do certain things on the website, and then you'll do certain things in the app itself. So I'm going to just make sure I have I have a physical checklist I look at just to make sure I'm going to cover everything I want to cover. So the first thing I want to talk about is my species list. So I mentioned before that the list of reportable options is based off of a list you can create. So in this case, the species you can report come from two sources. One is this My Species list, and the other is the species list that the projects you are a part of have as reportable. So in this case, I have a list. This is actually the list I got from the Georgia EPSI, Georgia Exotic Pest Plant Council list. So I had just imported that. That's my current list. I can add additional reportable options. So if I put spotted lanternfly on here, I can add that species, and it just added that to my list. I can remove species one by one by clicking the delete button, or I can clear my entire list and start from scratch. So right now I've got the Georgia EPSI list plus spotted lanternfly. That's my current list. These are my reportable species in the app. The next thing I want to mention, actually, before I forget, is I always recommend that people add two or three things to the list that might not come to you at first. So because you are limited to this list as your reportable options, I always recommend that everyone add, oops, misspelled that. Oh, that's searching the list. Unlisted. In this case, I'm going to add unlisted plant. Let me get rid of that. And then I'm going to add unknown. In this case, it'll be plant. Did I get unlisted? We'll have to. Let me add that just to make sure I did that right. There it goes. Unknown plant. There we go. So adding those allows me to report anything uncommon or unusual I come across without either just missing the opportunity to report it or attempting to put it under another name, which I might forget to change that later. So having these unlisted and unknown options allow for those really unusual occurrences that you'll come across. So that's something I always recommend adding to everybody's list. The next thing I want to mention in the list on the left here is my saved queries. So if I click on that, this shows me any queries I've saved through the advanced query tools, which exists on our tools part of our website. If I want to create more data sets, I can click this link, create new data set, and it will take me to the advanced query tools. And so I can say, I'm interested in, let's add just a couple things. I only want records that the species is there for, let's add spotted lanternfly. There we go. In, we'll say Pennsylvania. And we'll also go ahead and add tree of heaven. So that's my host and my pest. So it added 150 records. And so this query, I can save it with this green button here, and that'll be spotted lanternfly and tree of heaven, Pennsylvania. And it just saved that query. So if I go back to my saved queries here and refresh that, there it is. There's my spotted lanternfly, tree of heaven, Pennsylvania query. This is a recipe. So this, anytime I run this, it'll be accurate to that moment I ran it. This is just the recipe for creating this data set. The next thing I'll mention is under the EDDMapS Pro Tools section here is the My County list. So I mentioned that earlier. So right now I have one county selected. Let's say I am also interested in some of the neighboring counties. And I'll go ahead and add Lowndes County and Barron County. So I'm going to add those two counties. So I now have 3 counties in my county list. These are the counties that I will be able to download county level data for and any background maps that may exist. So the next thing I'm going to mention are project areas. This is another thing that, again, you want to kind of check on a daily basis, or at least before you go out, to make sure you have everything you need. So right now I have 2 areas. So these are not boundaries for selecting data. They are visual representations of areas you're concerned with. So if you have say responsibility for a local park and you had different areas of the park you did work in at different times, you might want to separate out those areas visually so that you have an idea of where you are and where the points that you're collecting or that other people have collected fall within those visual areas. So again, this isn't for querying data or anything, it's just a visual representation. So these are KML based. You can actually draw the KML, or you can upload an existing KML, and the max file size is 10 megabytes. So if I want to draw a KML, I'll click on draw. I will go to the area I want to draw my project area for, and let's pick a little too far. We're going to pick this area over here. I'm going to click the polygon. I'm going to draw in a clockwise fashion this area that I am concerned with. And there we go. That's my area. I'm going to name this, I think this is Fort Hill, and save it. And then so there's Fort Hill. That has now been added as one of my areas. I can look at the area, make sure I, did everything right, and it'll come up in just a second. There's that polygon I just drew. I can share it. So if I want someone else to have access to this area, I'm going to go ahead and share it with Joe Forest. And now he can have access to that. So if he wants to be able to visualize that on his app as well, he can. I'm going to close that. I can look at the centroid for it, or I can delete so maybe I drew it incorrectly, or maybe I don't care about that area anymore. I can delete that. The next thing is projects. So projects we covered in the previous office hour, so I'm not going to get into how to create whatever. I'm just wanting to make sure that for you, because you can report into a project in the EDDMapS Pro app, the idea is for you to create any projects you might need to create, update any projects that you're an administrator for, join any projects that you or request to join any projects that you want to be part of, or leave any projects that you're no longer wanting to be part of. So if I go to the dashboard here, I can see the projects that I'm part of. So I'm part of these 4 projects. As an administrator for certain projects, which I believe this one I'm an administrator for, yes. I can add or edit anything about the project I might want to, such as the species list. Again, your reportable species list is based off of your My Species list, as well as the species list that projects you're part of have as their target species. So if I go to Manage Project, I can see that the demo project's subjects are spotted lanternfly and tree of heaven. Those are the only 2 species that are reportable in this app. Sorry, in this project. So just want to make sure that you are part of the projects you want to be part of before you go out in the field. And also under Pro Tools, photo projects. So these photo projects are a visual documentation of the area. So these are these are not connected to records. They're not a part of an occurrence record. It is essentially you saying, I'm going to document a visual change to an area. So maybe I have an area that's completely overrun with tree of heaven and tallow tree and all kinds of stuff. And I want to document from, say, year to year what it looks like as I manage this area. That's what a photo project is. And so with photo projects, you can, as long as you've created a photo project before in the app, you can add new photo projects or photo points, things like that in the website. So that is primarily how to interact with things on the website side of things. So making sure that you have your projects you're part of and your queries created, everything like that. The next thing I want to talk about is things you need to do in the app. So I'm going to pull over my app here. I am using an Android, so there are some things that will look slightly different for our iPhone users. So in the app itself, the first thing you'll want to do is download the app. Should probably only need to do this one time. So someone just asked, do you have to create a subject list for projects? No, you do not. You do not have to create a subject list for a project. If you do create a subject list for a project, that's the only subjects that can be reported. But if you're just, say, wanting people to have data for your park or your watershed, report things they come across, and you want it to be anything they come across, you can leave that blank and they can report anything. So that is the way that particular subject area works for projects. So when I've downloaded the app, I'm currently logged in, and I'm going to make sure that when I go out for the day, I am prepared. So I'm going to click on tap on the menu bar, and I'm going to go down to app settings. And you saw I made all those different changes. I added new species, I added a new project area, and so forth. So I'm going to just refresh everything. As I tap to refresh different things, you'll see a little loading circle, refresh circle. It's going and checking our servers for changes that have been made. So now my species list is updated, and I'm refreshing my project list, and my project list is updated. So those are all updated. If I go back to the menu, you'll see that there's also this monitoring zones. If I click on monitoring zones, it's going to check, do I have monitoring zones? And I can refresh those here. So some projects do have monitoring zones. Monitoring zones are a very unique concept in that it ends up being, I am looking for a very specific thing with potentially a unique form and so forth. So for monitoring zones, those are not something that can automatically be set up by anybody. You'll have to end up working with us to design the everything you need to know about monitoring zones, including the forms potentially. So those are very, most groups we've talked to that have asked about monitoring zones later decide, okay, that's not what I need. And they end up looking at the project areas concept and go, okay, that's really more what I need. So just to let you know about the concept of monitoring zones very briefly. The next thing, you would look at your queue. So in this case, I have one record in my upload queue. And you would see, do you need to edit the record, upload the record, delete the record? So if I want to edit the record, I would click on it and I would say, okay, I reported mimosa. Oh, that's not a picture of mimosa. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to select this one record and delete it because it's a test record. I don't need to keep that. So now my queue is empty. Again, you would upload things that need to be uploaded, and this will include your regular mapping records, your new photo points, all kinds of things like that. This is just where everything you create will exist for you to upload or delete or edit. The next thing you'll want to do is let's go back to the menu, and you'll see you have photo projects, county data sets, custom data sets, project areas, maps. There's all kinds of things in here. So what you're going to want to do for each of these things that you interact with. So right now I've got those counties. It downloaded those extra counties for me. If I'm doing work today in Tift, Georgia, I'll want to download that data set. So right now it's going to go look for that data set, and it's going to download it. So now I've got that many records available, and to show that data on my map, I would click to show there. Again, things are slightly different looking in the iPhone version of things. If I want to interact with my safe query, my custom data sets, this is where those exist. So I can download all the data for Georgia EPC species in Tift County, or I can download the spotted lanternfly tree of heaven, Pennsylvania records. Those behave exactly the same on the map. It's as when I downloaded the county data set. Maybe I made some changes to my photo projects. So if I refresh and sync those, my photo project now shows up. And then let's go to the project areas. Remember, I created that extra project area there. It's now showing up because I did all that refreshing earlier. And so I'm going to go ahead and download Hort Hill, which is the one I showed you guys as I created it, and Across the Road. And I'm going to go back out to my invasives map. So right now I'm showing all this data because I turned on the Tift County data set. And if I go back to my project areas, what that will look like if I turn on these two, go back to my map, there they are. So there's across the road, it's literally across the road from me, imagine that. Oh, wrong way, sorry. And there's Hort Hill. So this is just showing me where my records are falling or where I might be in relation to those two project areas. If I go back to the map, so I mentioned offline aerial maps and offline road maps. If I click on offline road maps, these are the different road maps that are available to me. So I have previously downloaded Tift County, Georgia. I can download those other two counties that I'm interested in. If I click to show that, and I go back to my invasives map, I'm now looking at the road map. You'll notice that it looks a little different. So it's kind of a grayish color. I'm going to go ahead and turn that back off. Now the aerial maps, those are satellite maps. We do not, oh, let me show you one thing real quick, sorry. These are the offline road maps that we've created. So Georgia, Alberta, Massachusetts, and so forth, all the orange, we have offline road maps already created for those states. In a lot of cases, these are our partner states. These are groups we've done work with. So there are some states we do not have offline roadmaps created for yet. And so this is just letting you know right now, this is where we stand. If you need offline roadmaps for your state, let us know, send us an email, let us know that you are in Maine. So if Maine needs offline roadmaps, send us an email, let us know, and we will get to working on those. Again, these are county based. So I showed you that these are whatever counties I'm interested in, I can download for that county. It tells you how big the files are. Aerial maps, we have much fewer in the way of aerial maps. We have, I wrote it down earlier. About 326 counties cut out for offline aerial maps. Again, this is satellite imagery, but I can download these offline aerial maps. And these are for you to be able to kind of get bearings in certain areas to help you say, okay, I'm going to draw my polygon and I know that I can go to this fence line or to this stand of trees. That's more what these aerial maps are to help you with orientation and kind of polygons and things like that, maybe for navigating. So if I go back to the invasives map, you'll see there's this gear in the top right. So that's where some additional settings are usually relating to the visualizations of this map. So if I click on the gear, I can decide what type of map I want to see. If I want to see, for my my current map, which is, I'm not relying on the background maps for this, I can say I want to see a satellite map instead. And you'll see that it changed from that road map to a satellite map. I can decide if I want the map to follow me wherever I'm going. I can show or hide my photo projects. And then right here, this filter by section, this is talking about the data that you're viewing on this current map. So right now I've got all of Tift County showing. If I go to my settings, I can filter by, okay, I only want to see records that are actually there. So positive, I saw it, treated, I saw it, and performed some sort of management activity. And then maybe I only want to see certain species. So maybe I just care about alligator weed and Bengal dayflower and Brazilian vervain. Those are the only ones I care about right now. Oh, sorry, deselect all. I meant to click done up there and I just wasn't paying attention. So we'll just pick those again and Bengal day, there we go. Okay, and done. So now I'm limited to just those species. You'll see a number of different colors on the screen here. If I click on, tap on this help icon, it'll tell me what these different colors mean. So red is positive, yellow is treated, and so forth. If you aren't seeing the records you expect to see, always check to make sure that you have the proper filters applied that you want applied. So right now, if I closed the app and I came back to it a month later and I opened it up, I went, what are these records? Why are there so few records in Tift County? I could open it up and say, oh, okay, there's my filters. I have filters applied. Let's clear all of those filters. And then unfortunately, yes, we do have a lot of invasives reporting here. Okay, so someone asked about, can you see where you are? So right now, this little blue dot is me. And you'll see, wrong way. It's actually wrong. I'm in a building right now, so it's thinking I'm all kinds of different places. And that's why that blue circle is that coordinate uncertainty. It says I'm somewhere in this blue circle, but I'm in basically a concrete brick building. So this tells me where I am. And if I was off somewhere, I could just, at least in Android, click that, looks like a bullseye icon. It takes me back to me. So to add records, I would click on the green button at the bottom of this map, and it can use my current location, which, look at that area of uncertainty. I would not want to use my current location. It does not know where I am. I can draw a polygon. I can start by dropping a marker, so a point, or I could start by taking a photo. So I'm going to start by dropping a marker, and I'm going to say I am here. Come on. I don't know why it's misbehaving. Have I frozen? Oh, sorry. Where did sorry, everything's going, oh. And that crashed. That it wasn't the app that crashed, it was my the display that I use for showing the app. Goodness. Let me fix that real quick. And I will get back up.
And while you're fixing that, it's a good time to remind folks, there is the Q&A block that if you have questions, go ahead and put those in there. We will make sure to get to all questions that have been asked. It's always fun when the technology sometimes causes a bit of a hiccup.
Yeah.
I see there's been quite a few questions and answers going on in that section already.
Yeah, we've had some really good questions. So if you have not looked at those questions and answers, they're worthwhile to look at. I think they'll be helpful for everybody for some of the questions that have been asked so far.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why. Again, it was the app to show the app. It wasn't our app. It's just misbehaving suddenly. And so let me try to see if I can get that back up.
Well, while you're working on that, Chuck, you mentioned in the Q&A that you might not want to load all data for a given state like Minnesota. What scale of data are we looking at in something like Minnesota?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a few 100,000 records in Minnesota, and so that would be where you would definitely see some performance issues, especially on older phones if you tried to load all those points on the map at the same time. Now, we've done pretty extensive testing with data sets in the 20 to 30,000 point range, and so those are definitely will definitely perform really well on any newer device, let's say in the last 3 or 4 years. The last thing I'll say, and to address the question that just went in as Rebecca gets this going, the zoom level when you're using the offline maps or the offline road maps, it does limit you to what the resolution of those maps are. And so if you have the offline maps turned on, then that gives you a limitation of what zoom level you can zoom to. And that's 15 for the aerial maps, and that's 17 for the road maps. And that's just simply because of the size of the files otherwise. And so if you turn off those background layers, then you can take more advantage of and you have cellular coverage, then you can take more advantage of the maps that are built into Google Maps. And so and be able to zoom farther in than that. So if you're having trouble with that, Jake, or anybody else, then please let us know, and we can make sure that gets resolved. But there only should be a limitation on the zoom level when you have those offline maps turned on.
So it crashed again on me. What I was just going to show briefly was the adding a record. So you would use the green button. It'll walk you through it. I'm not going to, in case the Samsung Dex crashes again, I'm not going to go too far into this. And to conduct a revisit to an existing record, you would need to have that record visible on your map. You would tap on the record you want to revisit, and then you can view details and then revisit through that way, or you can go ahead and tap to report a revisit, and it'll take you to that revisit form where you can fill out that information. I will mention that you can change or add a polygon in a revisit, so it doesn't have to be the exact same shape throughout the whole project, that you're doing for this particular record. So you can show how things move and change over time. And I do want to just real quick, let's just use my current location. I do want to show you where that projects part is. So if I click here, this is the only project I can report kudzu into, because my other projects don't accept kudzu as an option. If I decided to report, oh, there it is, Tree of Heaven, now I have more options. I can report into that demo project I showed you earlier, the example project, or the EDDMapS Pro project. So those are my options. That's how I change projects. That's how project comes into play when reporting. And so that was kind of, I think I had one more brief thing to talk about, and then we were going to get to the all questions all the time. Okay. So then how do you've done all your reporting, you come back at the end of the day, what do you want to do at the end of the day? Well, you want to check in your, I didn't make any records, your upload queue. Do you need to edit any of the records in there? Do you need to delete any of them? Once you're satisfied, then I would say you would upload any records that you can at that time. That way you have the data going back into the database. And then once the data's in the database, because everything is saved locally, when you're saving all these records, they're not going to the database as you're filling out that form I showed you. You'll notice if I look at the bottom, they're saved. That's saving it locally to your phone. Again, most of our people that we work with work in very remote areas. So you're saving it locally, and then at the end of the day, you would be uploading the records once you get back to Wi-Fi or something similar. And then when the records are uploaded, then they would be reviewed by one of the EDDMapS verifiers for accuracy, and then it would become available to other people. And that's why refreshing your data sets is important, because it's adding your records, your reviewed in the unreviewed records to other people's data sets that they're using, as well as adding their reviewed records to yours. So you have the most current up-to-date version before you head out for the day. So that's basically kind of, again, setting yourself up on a kind of daily basis for success for using EDDMapS Pro. It's not a whole walkthrough of everything you could possibly do in the app. It's more of your checklist for day-to-day operations. So I'm open for any questions, and I can expand on any questions that were asked in the question and answer, or in the if there were some questions that made its way into the chat section that we didn't get to yet. Let's see here.
And one thing I will mention is there are some really good short videos on the EDDMapS training webpage focused on different features of EDDMapS Pro.
Yeah.
And so right there under there that, you know, and specific ones for iPhone and for Android. So all of those are links to YouTube videos, and feel free to use those as much as you would like.
Yeah.
And to answer one question, how do you know how accurate your location is? There should be an indicator on the report form that tells you, that tells you what the your current accuracy is. And that's really worth paying attention to, because like Rebecca being inside this concrete building, her location accuracy is way off. And so that's also where you can go in and move the pin to make sure it gets closer to where you actually are.
Yeah. So it's at this case, when you're on the reporting form at this point, it shows you either the point you chose exactly, or it'll say like the centroid of the polygon. It'll have that location there, and then it'll say, excuse me, sorry, it'll say plus or minus, in this case 500 meters. So my coordinate accuracy for using the use my location function, it's putting in there that it's 500 meters. If I had selected a point, if I said it is right here, then that accuracy would go down to 0, because you physically said it is exactly right here. So that shows you that. But if I go back to my big map here, this light blue circle you should be able to see. Let me make this bigger. That light blue circle is kind of my general area of uncertainty. So it gives you an idea of, okay, it thinks I'm and I moved again. It thinks I'm somewhere in this very, very large blue circle. And again, it's the building. It's not my phone. It's not anything like that. So someone said the app is not really user friendly for general public reports. Yes, again, this is the pro version. So we're expecting that the general public will end up using the regular EDDMapS app for, I'm a casual person out on a hike and I saw this and I want to report it. That's why the EDDMapS app version, the non-pro version, has a field guide to help people to be able to identify things they may see. And of course, a professional isn't going to know every single thing in the world. They can always have, download either the EDDMapS app to help them identify things, or they can, sometimes they'll have their own field guides, things like that to use. It's just, this is because you're downloading maps, data sets, things like that take up a lot of space on your phone. It was decided in working with our partners that they didn't necessarily need that in-app field guide as much as someone who was a much more casual reporter would need an in-app field guide. So that's where the trade-off ended up happening. Again, you saw how some of those data sets and the offline map sets, those end up being very large amounts of data. And if you're downloading several of those, then having that field guide means you just have, several gigabytes more data than you may actually end up needing.
Rebecca, we've got a question about the colors of the pins. And so two things worth pointing out. If you click on the question mark on the main map screen, then you see what each of the colors what each of the colors stand for. And these colors were very intentionally picked to help with colorblind people being able to tell the difference between the different markers, and it also limits the number of colors that can be available. If you want to filter the data sets by what has been revisited in the last year or what was observed in the last year, then that option is there. So you can show things for the last month. You can show or hide based on what you're looking at and filter a data set. So you download a data set and you say, okay, well, I just want to look at the things that I have not gone back to in the last 12 months, because those are the ones I want to prioritize. And so you can filter the data by that, as well as ones you have done, in order just to make that quick and easy and be able to better filter the data. Joe, sorry, you were going to say something too.
Yeah, I was going to different direction. There was a question earlier on from Daniel asking about, is this tool ArcGIS Online or Field Maps based or a custom application? This is a custom application because, as Chuck said, we did that because the ArcGIS platform is magnificent and has all kinds of functionality. But some people find it a little complex. Like, you know, Photoshop, I find extremely complex for editing photos. Give me something simpler. That said, even though this is a custom application we've built, we're following all the appropriate standards for geospatial data. This goes into ArcGIS Online. Matter of fact, we even have a feature service that we publish in ArcGIS Online for certain individuals that have paid for that service, because it's not free for the volume of data that we're throwing up there. We also have plenty of ways to export the data and take it in a standard format over to another system to do analysis and work with it. So just because it's not based on and has a foundation in ArcGIS Online behind the scenes for everything, doesn't mean the data can't go there. The entire point of doing this is to make it so data can move between systems. And it's one of our points of pride as the data aggregator to be able to work with all partners, regardless of what they're doing.
And be able to work with all partners, regardless of whether or not they have a ArcGIS account, because a lot of those tools require you to pay an annual license for an ArcGIS account in order to use some of those tools. And so that's what we've tried to do, is make this tool available to managers out there who need something to help them manage species on their property. And you know, EDDMapS Pro was developed initially for and with a focus on terrestrial weeds in that are managed at the county level in the western part of the United States. And so that is why some of these tools, you know, if you're a county weed coordinator and you're going out and you're trying to manage all the weeds in your county, that was how this was initially focused. But that does not mean that it cannot be used for other things. One of the monitoring zones example that is currently being done in Illinois is where they're using monitoring zones to go back and look at all of the tree of heaven infestations for spotted lanternfly. And so they're not only checking to see if, you know, not only doing a revisit to the tree of heaven location, they're also checking that for spotted lanternfly. And there's a good presentation that was part of the EDDMapS Summit back in March that talks more about that project. But it's just one of the many ways that users have come to us and said, hey, we want to be able to use this tool and modify it to do something else. And so it's Illinois Tree of Heaven monitoring update. It's like the fourth one up there. So, and we definitely welcome any of those type things. And if there's something that you get into this and you go, oh, it would be nice to be able to do this, then please reach out and contact us, and we'll be glad to incorporate that into, into our future plans. Or we may come back and say, yeah, we can do that, but it's going to, cost this much for the time to develop it. But everything that we do as part of this program, when we develop a new feature for a specific group, then we open that feature up and make it available to all the EDDMapS users. So we've got about 8 minutes left. Sticking to an hour, we can definitely go over, but if anybody has other questions, we'll be glad to address those. And on this page that Rebecca is on, this will be where the registration for next month's webinar will be later today, as well as the recording of this will be available there as well.
And I do want to mention, so if you do have any questions in general, you can email us, you can call us. If you're having an issue with the app, inside the app, and of course Samsung Dex just died again. I swear this is the first time this has ever happened, and it's died 3 times now. So in the app, under the app settings so you went to menu and then app settings, there is the feedback option. So you can send us feedback through the app for, I'm getting this error, these maps are not showing up, whatever is happening, you can send feedback through the app, and it'll go to the appropriate programmer, and you can describe the error you're getting, the steps you took to get to that error, as well as any other information that they might be able to use to help replicate your error. And then it will also provide them like the version of the app you're using and things like that, which will help them to troubleshoot what might be going on. So I just did want to mention those 2 things, that you can contact us for just general questions, as well as sending feedback specifically through the app for any issues you might be encountering.
And one good feature that you can do now pretty easily, I think on both iPhone and Android devices, is there's a way not only to do a screenshot, but to actually do a short video recording what's happening, and those can be very useful as well. One of the questions in the chat is about using EDDMapS Pro with tablets that would not have cellular data plans. My recommendation on that is, so you have to buy the iPads with the cellular capability in them in order to get a GPS chip within the iPad, on the iPad models. And so you don't have to activate it and pay the daily, the monthly service for that iPad, but you do need to pay usually the additional $80 to get the tablet with cellular capability built in. I would honestly recommend the iPads over the Android tablets, and I do that just because there are so many different Android tablets that it can be very difficult sometimes to diagnose problems on those, especially if you're rolling them out to a large number of people, at least with, and we have seen Android tablets that were named almost the exact same thing, that one had a GPS chip in it and one did not have a GPS chip in it. We've also seen groups that have had very good experience using external Bluetooth GPS units, but those usually cost about an additional $80 to $100, which is about what you would pay to add the GPS chip into something like an iPad. These apps are optimized to be used on tablets and can be used on tablets, and especially if you go to the higher end tablets, the iPad Pros, for example. Those have a lot more processing power. They have good cameras now, and they have a lot of memory. And so that's another way that you can really get a top-notch device for about what you would pay for a newer phone.
And
So I got a question here.
I'll go ahead and answer that.
Okay, the second one, go ahead.
I just gotta cut you off there. So if records are entered as the incorrect species or other information, how do you bulk change them? There isn't a way to bulk change a subject for a, so if you went out and reported 10 observations of Japanese knotweed, and then you find out later that it was really Bohemian or giant knotweed, which are also introduced invasive species. We don't have a way for you to bulk update the species for those 10 records. Now, to edit a record, is my screen still sharing? Just make sure.
Yes.
Okay. To edit your own record, you would go to My EDDMapS. You would click on reports on the left, and if these are regular mapping records, so you have your original records, your mapping records, and then I talked about revisit records in relation to EDDMapS Pro earlier. So if we're just going to pick mapping records. So in this case, I have these records that are, you know, lightning and boundary point and whatnot, because this is a test account. On the, I can search for what I'm looking for. Once I find what I'm looking for, under this manage heading, there is view, edit, revisit, and delete. If I want to edit a record, so say I said this was lightning, which I did, and it's not. I want to edit that record, click on edit. And here's where I can edit any information about the report that I want to. I can say this was a negative observation of lightning. Or I could say, this is not actually lightning, it's absinthe wormwood. And I can add any information. So you'll see there's a lot more information on this form than there was in that form on the app. That's just the fact that we have a lot more space on the website. And usually people are inside where it's not, you know, 100 degrees outside. There's a lot more information you can add here that you can edit. You can add more photos. You can do kind of anything you want to add more information or edit existing information. And then when you're done, you would click submit. It says my edit has been saved, and there my record has been changed. If you want to do a bulk revisit, so you went out and you treated a whole field and there were 50 records in that field, you know, a whole bunch of different species. You can do that through on the left, there's EDDMapS Pro Tools, and then there's bulk revisit. Now, revisiting isn't going to change the subject, but if you, like I said, went out and treated a whole, I'm sorry, it's control and scroll. If you went out and treated a whole big area, so let's just pick one of these fields here. Say, oh, actually there won't be anything in there. Here we go. So say I was in this tree area right here. I can go back up a little bit. I can read the instructions. So zoom to the area, click the search icon. These are the records that are in my map view area. And then I can draw a polygon around the records I want to revisit. So in this case, in this tree area, sorry, I've got my screen bumped way up right now, so things are a little out of reach that normally aren't. So I'm going to draw clockwise and say come on, revisited all these, okay? And then I scroll down, and these are the records that I'm saying I did a revisit on. I can exclude certain ones. I can click all of them. I can say, oh, okay, actually, I didn't do anything with glossy privet that day. And then if I scroll down, all I can do, because I'm revisiting all of these records at one time, I can't change any of the location. I can't change anything. The only thing I can say is, what was the status? So is it still there? Is it a negative record? Did I treat all of this? Are these all considered eradicated? I can change the date and I can add comments. And then when I'm done, I would click submit, and then all of these records would get a revisit with this information associated with it. Again, that doesn't change the subject, but you can effect change to a lot of records at one time. If the records are not yours and were entered by someone else, how do you edit them? You cannot edit someone else's record. So if someone else reported something, and so you saw earlier, let me go back to my mapping records. So someone reviewed my record of lightning, and it's reviewed and not public, but say it was public and you saw it on the app or on our website. Anyone can, in the EDDMapS Pro apps especially, look at a record and contest it. Say, I don't think this is right. Contesting means that the record will go back into the review queue and it will be reevaluated. So if someone reported something that's incorrect, someone can contest that record, and it won't. Let's see what that looks like. Just from can you try to find see if there's the contest button? It's not. Oh, that's right. It's not publicly available. Here we go. Reviewed in public. Supposed to be public. Oh, I missed a one. Yeah, I caught it now. Okay, so can revisit. Okay, so contesting isn't on the website, but it is in the app. So any of the records in the app that you have on your screen. Let me see if I can ever so quickly pull this up.
But if I'm a verifier, I do have controls.
Yes. So if I go back here, so if I click on this record, go to view details, there's that contest button. Again, that sends it to the back to the review queue for the verifiers to reevaluate. And anybody can do that. This is not an account that I'm using that has any special permissions. Now, so you can do that. You can go in and contest records that are wrong, in your opinion, and in your estimation, in your expertise. And those would be sent back to the review queue. A verifier can re-review existing reviewed records and pull them out, re-review them if they think that they were incorrect as well.
And they can change the subject at that point while reviewing, correct?
Yes. Yes. A verifier can change the subject of a record. Now, they also cannot bulk change subjects. That's not a capability. They cannot bulk change anything like subject or location or anything like that. Actually, a verifier can't change the location of a record at all. The only person who can change the location of a record is the reporter of said record. Any other questions? While people might be asking, typing up real quick, as we mentioned earlier, we are going to have the next office hours. It will be July. It's not showing up on my calendar. Everything's just
it's July 15th.
Okay, July 15th. It'll also be at 11. So that will be covering how to become a verifier and how to kind of be, conduct reviewing responsibilities. So if the reporter is not available, can an admin change the location of a report? The answer to that is going to generally speaking, be no, because the reporter is usually what would happen is the reporter, if they're unavailable, a verifier can remove the record. Now you can report a record in the past. So if everything else about their record was correct except the location, you can make a new record with the correct location, and just say it was that date and so on and so forth. So you can create a new record if their record had something wrong with it, and their record can be removed.
Is that record a revisit? Is that record a new, entirely different record?
In my opinion, if there was an error in the original record, such as location, so we're dealing with this right now, actually. There's someone who reported Tegu in Georgia. The verifier contacted the person, and turns out the report was supposed to be in Tennessee. In that case, it would need to be a new record, in my opinion. It's not a revisit of the original record if the original record is incorrect in that respect. If it's the difference of like an across the road thing, maybe, but if you're talking about, miles away, if you're talking about enough of a difference that it's not, just a small GPS error, then it needs to be its own record, because the original record's incorrect to begin with.
And Gary, yes, you're exactly right in terms of seasonals and those kind of things. And that's why we also encourage, if you have crews working, for each one of them to have an account in their name. And we have had situations where issues come up, and we work with the supervisor of the former, seasonal, in order to make wholesale changes, and we'll be glad to do that. At least if you have a name, and yes, the incorrect record can be deleted by a verifier within the system. So whoever the verifiers are for an area have a lot of control. We just didn't make it where they can completely go in and edit the records, but they can delete the records. They can change the subject on the records to correct things. And so, but I will stress the fact that if you have seasonal workers, if you have crews like that, make them create their own account. If that account is something that you later need control of, just contact us and we can make that happen. But it's a whole lot easier for you to go back and realize that, Joe LaForest made all these mistakes that summer he worked for you, and that you need to fix, than if all of your crew are all under one account and 90% of them were good and there was just one bad apple. So just something to think about.
Yeah, so in this case, I just wanted to show this real quick. This is what a verifier sees when they're reviewing an individual record. They can delete the record. They can make the record negative. They can change the subject, and then they can also review and release a review and don't release a record. Release means make it publicly available. So if the record is just wrong, it's just outright wrong, and there's no way that it makes sense to change the subject, if it's obviously a test record, that kind of thing, they can delete the record if there's essentially no way of fixing a wrong record to make it a useful piece of data.
Yeah. And more on verifiers, how to be a verifier and all that's involved, next time
Yes.
on EDDMapS on the Bugwood office hours.
Yeah. Qualifications to be a verifier. That's something we will work out with the people either asking to be a verifier or people recommending people to be a verifier. Basically, the most basic way to say this quickly is, does the person have some sort of training, education, experience in identifying whatever they want to be or someone wants them to be a verifier for? And look at their area of geographic, either responsibility or comfort level, things like that. This is a very kind of person by person situation that we work with in adding people as verifiers. And we do a lot of work with our local partners to talk to them about verifiers as well.
And that's the key point, is different states and the agencies, the agencies with the authorities in those states are using EDDMapS in different ways. And that in a lot of cases affects whether or not we do more peer-based verification, or it is strictly somebody in the agency with the authority over invasive species in that area. So it becomes a very difficult question to say, hey, here's how you become a verifier, because it really does vary depending on what state or even what province for Canada you're in. And in most cases, we have some kind of relationship with the agency that's responsible for what different taxa of invasive species. And as y'all know, that even varies with different taxa within states. And we work with them, and some of them are good with, some of them want university experts or others to be verifiers, and some of them want to do it in-house. And so we work with those groups to make sure that happens. And to learn more about that and that process, we will do that on the next webinar. And thank everybody for coming today. And this recording will be available, as well as registration for next time later this afternoon.
Thank you everyone for joining us, and look forward to seeing you guys again.